Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Haynes. For those of you who might be seeing this that I haven't met, um, Elizabeth and I have been coming to this church now some near 17 years. Later in my growing up, my father and my mother started to move quite frequently. I found myself with that moving becoming isolated, quite troubled, quite lonely. I started to drink in my early teens. Um, Back in that day, work careers were established in great part by the schools that grade schools and high schools that people attended, and mine was no different than that. And I was able to begin work at a very good company on the ground floor level uh, when I was 16 years old, and I continued to work for that company until I was aged 30. The pay was really good. Um, the bad part about that was I neglected to see that I was neglecting my family. As Elizabeth and I continued to uh, basically just tolerate one another, my drinking actually took over my life. And the sad part about that, when that happens to one, you don't even realize that it's taking place until you wake up one day and your world is not the same. That happened to me June 8th of 1991. Elizabeth had left. The kids couldn't have cared less at that time. I actually had my own suicide planned out, and uh, that very day was considering implementation of that. I have a brother here in Elkhart who lived here at that time that knew my situation was desperate and kept in touch on nearly a daily basis. And that particular day, he knew that he had to intervene in some manner. So he drove all the way to our home in outside of Fairmount there, and um, he and I were talking, and he asked me, had I ever considered just getting down on my knees and praying to God to take away this terrible, insane way of living. Honestly, I hadn't even considered it. Um, Dave left. He had to come back home during that evening and took his trip back home. And I got to thinking about what he had said, and I did, in fact, go in the house, drop on my knees, and just prayed my heart out, asking God to take the burden of the alcohol away from me. That burden was immediately lifted. The desire to drink was gone. Now, that's been some 24 years ago now, and folks, I can tell you this, that's of God. Man does not do that kind of thing. God loved me more than I love myself, and he did not let go. I want to witness to the fact how much this church has meant to me and my family. Um, Most of you know that this is a very, very caring and loving church, and I have found it never to be different than that. But this church wraps their arms kindly around one another and helps them to go through battles that they don't have to do alone. And my testimony is to that and to God. I owe him everything, but I would encourage you um, from my heart that trust in the Lord. He made you, he knows you better than anyone, and He can help you through any kind of troubles that you may be facing and think are insurmountable. Nothing is too great for Him. That's what I wanted to say.